Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Melissa Colgan, and I'm an interior designer based in Washington, D.C. I am thrilled to be hosting this talk today. As a designer, I know how important it is to get the stone selections right in your projects. And we are lucky to have with us today two incredibly knowledgeable sources on the subject. First, I'd like to give you a bit of background on ABC Stone. ABC's extensive portfolio is comprised exclusively of the world's finest natural stone imported from 6 continents. Over the course of their nearly 30-year history, ABC Stone has had the honor of forging relationships with the world's premier architects, designers, and visionaries. They pride themselves on being an essential resource and trusted partner to their clients, and they make it their mission to anticipate a client's needs and exceed expectations at every turn. Today with us from ABC Stone, we have their head of procurement, Agnes Shamaha, and their VP of architectural sales, John Toronto. Thank you for joining us, Agnes and John.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you.
Welcome. And then we also have with us Joe Vance, the owner of Joseph Vance Architects in New York City. Joe has specialized in custom high-end townhouses and brownstone renovations in the city for more than 30 years. His firm also does apartment and loft renovations, new ground-up townhouses, and rooftop additions. Joe's work has been published in Vogue, House & Garden, and the New York Times, to name a few. He is known for his refined, clean lines with an emphasis on warm materials, natural light, and livability, which you will see in his project today. Joseph Vance Architects works differently in that they design a project from beginning to end in 3D software, giving clients the unique experience of having their designs altered and evolved in the 3D model during meetings. You will get to see how this works today. The townhouse you will see in just a moment was recently awarded the 2020 NYC by Design Award for Best Freestanding Townhouse in New York City. I also want to let you all know that there is a Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. Joe, John, and Agnes would love to get your questions, and we will answer those all at the end, but please submit them as you think of them as they come up. And now I will let Joe show us through his project.
Thank you, Melissa, and thank you all for coming. So the project I'm going to show you, you see up on your screen. This is a photo from 1938. It was really, this is just one of those unique projects that you hope you get one of these once in a while. It's rather large. It's a 13,000 square foot building consisting of a single 11,000 square foot private home. And then there's commercial space on the ground floor. The building was built in 1869. It's in Soho, in the Soho Historic District. And it's, of course, it was built to be manufacturing. And it's got a great history because, and it's really coincidental, the history of it, because it sort of jives a lot with our work. I always say I love giving new life to old buildings, and this one we certainly were able to. But also we had great inspiration because from the early 1960s up until the day we started the project, the building was owned by Philip and Kelvin Laverne, famous mid-century artisans. They created artwork, sculpture, furniture, many beautiful things that are highly coveted now. All of that mid-century work really just feeds into what we do, and it was great to be able to call on our craftsmen to do this project. So quickly here, this is the photo from 1869. This is Philip and Kelvin Laverne back then, and some of their photos. Of course, we have technical issues. They worked a lot with metals, oil, bronze, and different finishes, wood and brass together, made beautiful, beautiful metallic objects. So this was really fun. When we started the project, as they were moving out, I was able to spend quite a bit of the time, over a year and a half, with Kelvin, who's on the right. Everything is pretty much packed up and out of there, but it was still fun to see maquettes and things that were in process, which you normally don't get to see with someone at this level. So this is the building when we started. So the building really, honestly, from the day it was built in 1869, pretty much the only change to the building was the facade was painted and the facade was closed in. Otherwise, inside it was the same tin ceiling, same wood floors. And this is the building today after we've restored it. And we did a complete exterior restoration. We added a rooftop addition. We excavated down in the cellar. So it was a fairly extensive project.
Amazing. It sounds really like a very special home with an incredible history to it. Joe, can you tell us some of the ways that you made decisions about the stone that you used in this project?
Sure. And we had quite a bit of stone in this project. Like starting here in the wine room, we started using stone, but especially the bathrooms, we were able to just use a lot of special things. This is a beautiful wire brush and unfilled travertine. This is Royal Andino, where we're able to work with craftsmen to do this, really amazing waterfalling of all the veining into a custom stone sink. This one, I believe, is Calcutta Gold, again, being able to match all the grain as it goes from the wall to the sink to the floor. And then the cellar of the house is unique. The entire cellar is a spa for the private home, consisting of a swimming pool, hot tub, massage room, steam room, sauna. And that's sort of where the story starts. So there were a few different ways that stone selections were made here. And in the spa area, in the pool, ended up being sort of driven by technical considerations. So not to get too much into architect speak, but we excavated 8 feet down below all the buildings on both sides, so you're well below ground. And I wanted you to have some sense that you're underground. In other words, I didn't want the walls to just be painted sheetrock or wood or something that you commonly see. So I started thinking about what could this stone be that reflects the fact that I'm underground and there's a layering effect, when you dig into soil and you see the layers of earth built up. So in the beginning, first rough concept, we were looking at some kind of horizontally groomed stone, like I think this might have been driftwood. And then I came upon, I'd known this project, I haven't had the pleasure of visiting it, but this is Peter Zumthor's Firm Vow Spa, an incredibly beautiful piece of architecture, where he stacked these long strips of stone. And that really had a big impact on me. So that was the idea we started moving forth with. So in our design, we started using that idea of long, thin strips of stone. I thought I wanted the stone to be a cleft face. I knew I wanted the walls to continue and become the walls of the pool. So having worked with ABC for, I don't know how many years, 30 years probably, I immediately got a hold of John and Agnes and told them about this and sent them this image. And that's how we started the process of talking about the story.
Wow, well, this is so cool already, just seeing this drawing here and hearing about the inspiration. So Agnes, I'm curious, what was the advice that you gave to Joe when he came to you with this idea?
Well, Melissa, we were very concerned about the longevity of material, considering that it would be constantly submerged in water, where delamination is possible. We also took into consideration maintenance and agreed that home finish was ideal for this application. As far as material selection, there's only a few materials that can be submerged in water, granite being one, and some dolomitic limestones. So we presented various options, but at the end, this was really the most ideal choice.
Amazing. So Joe, how did you go from selecting the type of stone to what we see in the completed project? And what was it that I know you didn't get your original stone idea, but what was it that you loved about the stone that you ended up with?
Well, one thing was, if I go back to this design image, one thing that when we were working with this in design and concept, we did have you know, a great deal of concern. We didn't want it to feel dark and morbid. So one thing we realized with this stone, the stone is probably 70% black with white graining. So as we started working with the fabricator, I had the idea of when they cut the strips to not cut parallel to that vein, but to have the veins perpendicular or diagonal, and to make sure they were totally randomly placed. So you'll see here in this photo, what resulted was, if you look at a big slab of the stone, it is a little bit dark. But when you see the way it ended up after it was all cut in strips and randomly located, it becomes very lyrical all of a sudden. There's a lot of movement to it and life. So it went from something that could have been dark and drab to something that is, feels fairly lively and interesting.
Yeah, lyrical is really the perfect phrase when you look at the stone in that space. So this spot is an example of how you selected stone for technical reasons for the space, but sometimes selections are made for different reasons. Can you give an example or a couple examples of other ways, other reasons for which you selected stone in different places?
Yeah, another one is what I call stone by shopping. So this is the master bathroom in this home. This happens to be a computer rendering. So what you're looking at is a vanity, and behind me is the same mirror image of that vanity. To the left of that vanity, what you're seeing is the walk-in shower. And if you turned around behind me, you'd see the same thing, only it would be the toilet that you walk into that space. So in the middle of design, I'd always, this is brown suede, and I just always dearly loved this stone. And I thought, wow, this is where I'm going to use it. This is absolutely perfect. This is it. We don't need to look at anything else. Then, of course, we go to ABC, which is like going to, I'm dating myself, but anybody who remembers the glory days of Century 21. It's so great going down there because everything changed frequently, and you never knew, you knew that everything was going to be different when you got there. ABC's like that. They are constantly getting new stuff in, and you really never know what's going to show up that you didn't expect. So we went there for the purpose of picking the exact brown suede slabs. And instead of that, we stumbled on this gray smoke onyx and decided, oh, this is the perfection. This is what we really have to use for this. And the client was thrilled. So that's how we picked this stone, by shopping.
That's a great point. You know, I think it's something interesting to talk about, like how to shop with the client and when to shop with the client. I have found sometimes the stone yard can be overwhelming for some clients, just like a brick showroom can be. Do you pre-shop the stone yard, or how do you do it?
Yeah, we do. So we'll pre-shop partly because you know, the stone itself inspires me. So I do want to look often while we're still designing, to look at stone to get inspired. And then before I bring the clients, we'll have some choices narrowed down, and we'll take them to look at those choices. But sometimes, depending on the client, we'll walk the aisles and see everything before we make our final decision.
Yeah. Well, the final selection, the gray smoke onyx, is truly spectacular. Agnes, can you tell us a little bit about this stone?
This material is actually from Turkey. It's gray and beige color blend is very neutral. There could be quite a bit of variation from slab to slab when material is cross-cut, but Joe perfectly embraced this variation here in this bathroom.
Yeah, that's what's interesting. When we're looking at these slides, Joe, you can really see that you put a lot of thought into how the stone is placed. And that's something that's very important that, you know, I talk to clients about, and I know is very important to you as an architect. Like, tell us a little bit about why cutting and installing stone is almost just as important as like the actual stone itself.
Sure. This is actually, I've got two examples. This is actually one. Oh, just to back up a moment. Another thing, oops, hit the wrong key. Another thing we do, we design all in 3D. So one thing we do is once we picked that stone, it was a very difficult stone to actually match. to decide how to configure in the wall. So we do it in our computer software. These are images the client would have seen. The client then approves it, and then it goes to the technical drawing that we send to the fabricator. So in this case, I don't know if anybody can see on their screen, the numbers are small, but on the left was the shower, and that was 4 consecutive slabs, 9, 10, 11, and 12. But in the toilet room, they didn't have stock for us to get 4 more consecutive slabs, so they're non-consecutive. But even on the ones that were consecutive, this particular material, just going 3/4 of an inch from one slab to the next, it can vary greatly. So you aren't always book matching the way you think you're going to. So especially the image on the right in the toilet, we had to really play a lot with the full-size photos we got from ABC in our software to decide the right way to do it. But in the end, this is what we send to the fabricator. We don't go to the dirty stone yard with blue tape anymore. We send them these photograph drawings that say, cut here, and it makes life a lot easier. Another example of that is this one, but this is also another example of another way of designing.
Yeah, what I love about this this space in the house is that oftentimes you're kind of given like a design conundrum, something that you're trying to fix as an architect or something. You know, you've got like a goal to make something a little bit feel a little bit better. And I wanted to hear how you use stone in this space to kind of make this really grand double-story room feel a little bit more like close to nature and a little bit cozier.
Yeah, so this was a challenge. Again, a reminder, this is an existing building.
Right.
We wanted to create a tall living room, in which case you're basically taking out an existing floor and the vertical height you have left is what you have. You don't have the option of adjusting your ceiling height very much because it's continuous in the floor above. So we ended up with a 22-foot floor to ceiling in this living room, which had the potential to make you feel like you're sitting in the bottom of a well or something. So during design, we realized we needed to do some things to accentuate the horizontal to help the scale of the room. So part of that was done with architectural elements, but we also realized that we had the opportunity to address it with the fireplace. Every time we tried a design solution to this using cladding the fireplace in wood or metal or anything else, it was just too oppressive. So we decided to use driftwood. So this stone, which is called driftwood, we sourced from ABC. It's a difficult stone because it's soft. It comes with an epoxy mesh backing, so you can't flip them like you can with other stones. And we realized here that, again, in the end, this wasn't slab 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get the effect we wanted. It may be difficult to see on your screen, but the coloration of the stone sort of gets darker and lighter and darker and lighter as you go up. And that results from the way we stacked the particular slabs to get that effect we wanted.
I mean, just so people have an appreciation for like how much goes into it, like how long does it take to do something like that, to figure that out in your rendering process before you, from start to finish, before you feel satisfied and got to where we're looking at now?
It's a little bit hard to say. I mean, it was a lengthy selection process. We spent a lot of time with ABC getting just the right slabs that we wanted. But once we thought we had the slabs that all had the features we want, and we got the full-size images of those, we probably spent maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours in our software resolving it the way we wanted.
Well, it's certainly a really, really stunning use of stone and something, you know, that I've never seen before. And I really think it does make the room feel cozier and really connects it to the world. Another issue that I know a lot of designers and architects have is creating visual balance within spaces. And I find this particularly tricky when it comes to kitchens, because all of the materials are hard. You have, you know, the floor, you have countertop materials, you have backsplash materials, you have the cabinetry, you know, everything is kind of like a harder surface. How do you use stone to create visual balance in a space like a kitchen?
Well, in this case, the best example is the kitchen. The kitchen is in a space which is half kitchen, and then where the cameraman would be standing in this case is the family room, the main family hangout area. Since it's all one space, I didn't really want it to feel, for lack of a better word, too kitcheny. I wanted the kitchen to feel like it was crafted with, warm materials like the examples I flipped through early on of the rest of the house. So we did that by using quite a bit of wood and by reducing visual elements. So you'll notice that at the range, typically behind the range, you would see stone or stainless steel or tile or something like that. We continued the wood behind that with an inset piece of tempered glass to resolve that issue. But the biggest design challenge was the island. The client wanted a big island, which often, as I mentioned, can feel like an aircraft carrier parked in the middle of your kitchen. This is 6 foot by 7 foot or something. It's quite large. And we actually decided our design solution was to embrace that large object and make it a beautiful object. To make it not look so much, oh, that's a kitchen island, but that's a beautiful object. Part of it obviously was the cladding it in mirror polished stainless, but the other was the way the stone was handled. So that is actually our feature stone. I'll zoom in a little bit. That's our feature stone, which is silver shadow, but we didn't want to read the thickness of it. So the detail here, the edge of the stone is 1.25 inches thick, but we had the fabricator back miter it. They cut a 45-degree angle around all 4 sides. And then the cabinet maker did the same with the tops of all the doors and drawers. So the countertop sits down into the cabinetry. So you're just seeing that beautiful surface. So we had that beautiful object that we loved, but we still had more countertops. And we didn't really want those to be something that would distract from this. We wanted them to, in the end, we wanted them to be white. We didn't want to use Corian because we'd had some, maintenance issues with Corian. So ABC, I think it was Agnes, introduced us to the product we use here, which is Santa Margarita.
Wow, well, it looks incredible. Agnes, I'm curious to know a little bit more about both stones, Santa Margarita and Silver Shadow. Can you share with us a little bit more information on those?
Sure, Melissa. Santa Margarita Vega quartz used here is a contemporary surface. Using this type of surface obviously has its advantages as far as durability, it's non-porous, stain resistant, and as Joe mentioned, because it is so nondescript, your attention is diverted to the beautiful centerpiece of the center island in which Joe used the silver shadow quartzite. It's actually a dolomitic marble, not a quartzite.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And it definitely, the use of that Santa Margarita on the perimeter definitely makes your eyes immediately go to that incredible, really special island. Joe, you also mentioned earlier that your firm designs using 3D software from beginning to end. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how that process works and what that looks like?
Yeah, I will show you, and apologies to all of our attendees. Zoom requires me to stop sharing and then resharing. So you're going to see a little bit here. Stop sharing, and we will reshare. Okay, so now we're actually in our 3D software. If I can get the mouse to function, there we go. This is an apartment we're working on right now. It's a penthouse apartment that we're renovating. And I'll just show quickly. Again, we've got a wonderful client who loves stone, so we're getting to have some fun. So this will be the main guest, the bathroom for the main guest room. So here we're using, I have to remind myself, so the floors and the walls are travertine. The wainscot part of the walls is actually fluting. So the fabricators will flute that. It'll be sort of a ripple effect. And then the wall hung vanity is totally clad in Fantastico Danby, which is also on the back wall of the shower. So that's one bathroom. Another bathroom is this one. And I believe this one is called Montpellier Grise. So here the walls and the tub will be clad in that, and the stone will be custom made. The sink, sorry, the pedestal sink will be made out of that same stone. But then I'll show you sort of the fun part of the way we work with this. So this is the main powder room. Sorry if it's a little herky-jerky. So the design concept for this powder room is sort of imagine that end of the room you're looking at was carved out of a solid block of wood. That's why we see the stone on the top, on the floor, and on both sides. And then the sink has been, in this concept, carved out of the same stone. So we have an idea like this. And so part of it is an architectural idea. We know we want to do that. We know we want it to be stone. But then we have to decide, well, which stone is it? So there's a lot of ways that comes about. It comes about from the visual effect we want, from the coloration we want. But in our 3D software, we've developed over the years a pretty extensive library of stone. So I can, let me just get something in here. I can select this stone and go to my list. Right now it's Calcutta Gold. So right now it's Calcutta Gold. I can say, what would it look like if it was Calcutta Ondulato? And okay, we instantly see what that looks like. It's like, okay, that's interesting. It's a little moody, so maybe that's not the right one. So I can select it again and pick, which one? Calcutta Cielo, which is very intense and moody. Like none of those are really what we were looking for. So I'm gonna undo that. So we really ended up deciding that we wanted the Calcutta Gold for the purpose of, we wanted the bathroom to be lightish. We wanted to be able to, it's very small. So we wanted to be able to, and the toilet, you're stuck with the toilet. It can't be hidden in this room. So we realized that if we picked a stone that had a whitish or predominantly whitish background, and with a white toilet, and if the sink was made of the same material, now it doesn't feel so busy. But here's some more interesting things that happens. That's how we generally decided on this stone. But now we take it to the next step. So one of the next steps was Calcutta Gold can often be a bit intense. The veins in it are a bit rusty and they can be pretty bold. So what we did was we were able to go to ABC's virtual stone yard, where they have full-size photographs of every single solitary slab that ever enters the premises. And we found this particular lot of stone that was a little more gentle, which we really liked. And then, so I mentioned earlier in bathrooms how we decide in virtual reality how to cut the stone. So let me show you quickly how we do that. Let me just suspend groups here. So in the model, we've got the photo of the stone. So if you watch my hands wave around, the stone's a pretty big slab. It's bigger than the wall surface it's on. So we can actually take that slab and imagine you were holding it in your hands and sliding it back and forth. So what I can do is go here, and so I can decide, well, what if I slide that slab over and end up with this vein? So, it's interesting. Now I've got this V coming up out of the sink. And I can continue doing that for all the surfaces and move it all over the place. But in this case, we decided we really liked that feeling of that dramatic vein moving down and down towards the toilet, sort of filling the blank space of wall. So those are all ways that working in this 3D CAD software really helps us a lot, because otherwise doing that any other way besides the way I just showed you is not very easy to try to play with and get a feeling of what the entire room feels like.
Definitely, and I think it can be really, if you're not a super visual person, if you don't do what we do and you're not in this world all the time, it can be really difficult to, for a client to see a slab of stone and imagine how it's going to look in 3D. And like, this is perfect. You can see exactly how this powder room is going to look. It's incredible.
And especially our clients really love it. To be able to, oh, by the way, I didn't mention that. when we meet with our clients, they're seeing exactly what you're seeing here.
Yeah.
So we're able to show them quickly all these options and different ways of doing it so they can be part of the design process.
Yeah, that's amazing. So this was incredibly informative. I thank you so much, Joe, but we do have some good questions from people who listened in today. And let's go first. This question we have that is about your software, since we're kind of just coming off of that subject. What 3D rendering software are you using that we're looking at there?
This is actually, it's not rendering software. This is 3D. It's actually BIM is the buzzword, Building Information Modeling. But this is ArchiCAD made by Graphisoft.
Okay, amazing. Agnes, one of our attendees has asked if you could talk a little bit about the digital stone catalog that Joe also mentioned during the talk.
Yes, so for the past 2 years, we've developed our digital stone catalog, and we photograph every single slab that arrives in our warehouse. These images are high resolution and scaled down to a 1/16 of an inch, and are ideal for the type of application that Joe implements as far as renderings.
Amazing. And I have a question also for either Agnes or John. How do you maintain white marble from etch marks? Keeping these nice, looking like they do when they're new can be a little bit difficult in real life. And I often get pushback from clients myself saying, "Oh, I'm worried about real marble. Is it going to stain immediately or etch immediately? Like, how do you care for it? How do you talk to architects and their clients about it?" Oh, John is talking, but John, if you could unmute yourself.
If you move your mouse, you'll see an unmute button.
Got it. Could you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm good now?
Yes.
Okay. And again, thank you, everybody. And Joe, wonderful presentation. And Melissa, thank you. In regard to maintaining white marble, it's been the question of the century. We usually have any kind of white marble where it's going into a kitchen application because the sealers on the market for the last probably 10 years are non-toxic. They're water soluble. There's where you need to have a home surface, more or less, put in the kitchen because you can maintain it with the sealers. Or if you find a very hard marble like Joe did in the silver material that they used in the kitchen, which was a harder dolomitic material, sometimes if you apply that in polished application, it will withstand a lot of problems. It will keep a lot of etching away from the material. But generally, rule of thumb with white marble, be it from Italy, Spain, Portugal, the Danby material from Vermont, which is used quite a bit right now, it's usually a home process that's done for a kitchen, and usually a restoration company or a good fabricator will know how to seal. That seems to be the biggest problem on how to do something. How to seal is not just spraying sealer on and then walking away. It's a process that takes nearly 3 hours when the stone is installed. And better fabricators and restoration companies do it properly. It has to be saturated and soaked for about an hour. The stone will absorb all of the chemical, which again is non-toxic, wipe it off and then apply it again. And then basically the client, they don't have to have a maintenance program come in. About once every 4 or 5 months or so, they could reapply on the home surface because there's no buildup and there's no yellowing, and this prevents from a lot of etching. There are other things in the market that they can contact ABC, and we can go into some things that happen to be very, very expensive, but there are 25-year guarantees with this material that they can use that guarantee it will never etch for nearly 20 years. But that gets into a little long detail about the product. But again, we are also recommending quite a bit of natural quartzites in kitchens now. And we tend to leave those polished because it gives a brilliance of a color and it doesn't etch as much as marble does. And then we get into natural man-made materials, which are the Santa Margarita and also the sintered materials that are out now by Lapitech. So these materials, you never seal or you never have to worry about them. They can take up to 400 to 600 degrees of something coming out of an oven, or you could leave a bottle of wine on there or olive oil for 2, 3, 4, 5 days, and nothing basically penetrates this. So these are all the things that we try to enlighten the clients about when we're having conversations with them in regard to how to maintain and how to use the proper material for the applications.
Yeah. Well, I need to come back and listen to this. That was very helpful. I just am always like, oh, it's like a leather sofa. It's going to just get better with age. Like, take this here. Mm-hmm. But okay, I'm going to come back and listen to this because I think that's a better sales pitch than what I've been going with.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I have a question for Joe. Joe, was this space always going to be a rental, or were they hoping to sell it?
They always knew it was going to be an income property, and they were always like 90% sure it was going to be rental. The client likes to hold property long term.
Amazing. Okay, amazing. And John or Agnes, many stone providers have square footage minimums. What are some creative ideas for using excess pieces of a slab, especially when the slab is like a great statement piece, like we had on the island in that kitchen?
Tables, I think. Maybe vanities would be a good idea. Fireplaces.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the project that I showed you, in the townhouse project, we used extra pieces of some of the stone for a wet bar, for the countertop in the wine room. We really found places to reuse the scraps that were left over.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is an interesting question. Do you have to consider the stone that's in the shower the same way that you had to consider the stone that you had in the spa and the pool? I mean, the pool, that one was obviously going to be submerged always, but what are the considerations that you have to take into consideration for both, and how are they different, shower versus like a pool?
Okay, I'll take that question, Joe, even though. So what happens with a lot of materials where we actually have to guide clients correctly, as Joe would do client? The reason why Agnes had mentioned the stone that we use in the spa was a granite. That material will basically take any kind of chlorine or salt and have no damage to it. White marble, a lot of white marbles are used in showers, things from the Danby quarry again, Calcutta, Carrara. The durability of the material works, but now change course of action, and a client wants to use a dark brown marble or a black marble in a bathroom or a shower. What will happen immediately from the condensation, the stone will oxidize. That means the brown will turn beige and the black will turn gray. The reason why these stones are not capable of achieving what we're trying to have them do. So what we'll try and do for the client that may want something pure black, we may take them into a black quartz or a black man-made material. And a lot of the black man-made material on the market right now looks just like a lot of people that are still on site right now probably know about Belgian black, the purest black in the world. A lot of our man-made materials are carbon copies of this, or you could even use black granite from black Zimbabwe granite, which is a pure black, or even black basalt from Brazil. So it's really listening to the client the same way we listen to Joe when he's coming in. When our client first comes to us between the virtual gallery and our two facilities, one in Greenpoint and another 80,000 square feet in Hicksville, we try to take them in a situation where let's talk about the job first. Let's find out what the job entails. Let's take it room by room, because sometimes even with the virtual warehouse gallery, it could be overwhelming. So if we go step by step, sometimes you may have a house that has 6 bathrooms. You may only want to do 2 at one meeting, not to be overwhelmed. But guiding is correctly, and it's not trying to, ABC has never tried to sell a piece of stone to anybody. We want to make sure what's selected by the client works for the application, right? Because everything that we're doing now, a lot of the things, a lot of spas at home, a lot of swimming pools, we do many, many pools in the city. We've just done 2 pools on roof decks, and we have to know the conditions of what's going on. There's new ozone filters now that they're using instead of chlorine to fight bacteria. Since the virus has come out, there's an ozone process that's putting into the water. So all of the stones that we give to the client when they have to be in a wet area, we have already tested these materials for you. So we have the proper ASTM on the material, the hardness, flexibility, and strength. We give you all this as to the architect and designer and for the homeowner. So that's the way we try to consolidate every project and give people the right material.
So interesting. Joe, we talked a little bit about how you do sometimes go shopping with clients. Have you ever had a situation where you're shopping with a client and they fall in love with something that you really know is not right for the space, and how do you manage that?
Well, I have to say, I'm a Midwesterner. I'm kind of a straight shooter. And I'll never forget, actually, early in my career when I started my practice, I was actually at ABC, believe it or not, shopping with the client. And they kept picking things that just were not the right, just were not the right thing. But I'm not the type of architect designer that says you must use this, or, oh, that's disgusting. So I was saying, well, maybe we can think about that. We can think about that. And after the 3rd or 4th time, she stopped me and looked at me and said, you know, it's written all over your face what you really think. So why don't you just tell me? So I did. Mm-hmm. And I explained why. It just wasn't, it wasn't a matter of, I don't like that color. It was something that just everything else the client said they loved, and all the design decisions they made about the space, that didn't work with that. So you really have to find your way of educating the client about, to let them understand why they might not be happy with something. And stone's a big deal. You can repaint a room pretty easily, but once that stone's in, it's in. You're highly to buyer's remorse. You're highly likely to change it. Yeah,
right. So intellectualizing it and articulating to them and educating them a little bit on why something is or is not maybe the best choice for that space. We had some more questions about some of the man-made stones. So we talked about the Santa Margarita that was used on the perimeter kitchen counter, but there was also one other man-made stone used, I believe. Agnes, do you remember what it was? And can you tell us a little bit about it?
Joe, I think we've only used Santa Margarita
on that particular project.
Okay.
Well, I didn't write it down, but in the shower, the floor and the walls was a material that I thought it was man-made. It looks like Thassos, but it's not Thassos. Maybe it was a natural, maybe it was Thassos. I just don't recall. There's a lot of stone.
Well,
so I don't remember what it was.
Just may interject for a second, Melissa. So in regard to Santa Margarita, we are a distributor of that material. The thing about Santa Margarita, and Joe kept it in the kitchen, Santa Margarita is a beautiful material, like a lot of other great man-made quartz. But the problem is they can't go outside. They cannot come in contact with UV rays. So what has happened over time, in the last 2 years, we are now a supplier of a material called Lapitec from Italy. And Lapitec would be used the same way that Joe used the Santa Margarita. Again, pure white, comes in 11 colors, but the usual thing, the reason why ABC took on Lapitec, and again, we do a lot of homework, we try to educate ourselves as much as possible, is Lapitec has no resin. So what's happening now, we have, for instance, if this job that Joe was doing had a rear yard and they wanted to do an outside kitchen, and they wanted to do counters for an outside kitchen, you couldn't use the Santa Margarita outside. You would have probably taken a granite because it's durable. But again, granite will stain outside in weather conditions, and olive oil and wine and so on and so forth. So what happens is Lapitec material has no resin, made by 4 natural products, with 7 different finishes, and none of the finishes you ever need a sealer. You never need to protect the stone. So since we've had this material now, because we do quite a bit of work out east and in Greenwich and so on and so forth, we have been using this material now for cladding, buildings, and also for all exterior work, from counters to pavers, and also we use it in pedestals. So it's nice if somebody visits our sites, they look at Lapitech, and a lot of things are also, presentations to Joe made from Lapitech, because not that we want to put Santa Margherita on a back burner, but Lapitech overpowers the Santa Margherita material in every use that you can have it. And a polished finish, a satin finish, a Vesuvio, which is a slight bush hammered, and a sandblasted. So this is the next step in the industry that has come out with the only company that's come out with a man-made stone with no resin. So that means any color we make, we could put it outside and there'll be no deterioration of color. So it's just a little food for thought for that particular product.
Wow, that's so interesting. And it's interesting to think too about situations in which you can or cannot use either real stone or man-made. Are there other situations where you if somebody comes in and loves a real marble, and you for a certain application you steer them away, you say absolutely not, or vice versa, where they love a man-made and you steer them towards real? John, sorry.
I think what's happening now, a lot of contemporary things that are being built right now are going into man-made because they want to be extremely clean. Right, Joe? I think you agree with me on that, on what's going on. And we find out that considerably the work that we've done, we've been working out east in the Hamptons for the last 35 years with interior and exterior stone. But a lot of the interior material in the last 10 years have been grays, very pastel grays, medium grays. And a lot of the beautiful marble, they come in gray, but again, you can't bring it to the exterior. So we have to always look for what's going to work for our paving. But the key now has become, with the man-made materials, on the pastel colors that they're able to do and the size of the slabs that they're creating. So what's happening here, you're getting slabs now man-made that are 132 inches. They're 11 feet by 59 inches. This is a monster piece of material. And they're making it in half-inch thick, which has been unheard of. So half-inch thick, you can basically put it on a countertop, and we have created in Italy an induction system that we can actually cook on the Lapitech material. Yeah, and it's all on the site, and this is where now this has been taken. As much as we're stone people, I'm doing this, and a lot of other people for over 35 years doing stone. But this, again, we have to change as what changes around us. And this Lapitech is really a very, very unique material. I hate to keep mentioning the name, but it is a very unique material done in a lot of contemporary design. And in your question, I'm doing 3 houses in Palm Springs, California, where they're cladding those houses in silver travertine from Italy. I can't do that. And if those people move to the Hamptons, and they want the same look, I can't give them travertine for an exterior in the Hamptons. I have to change it to a limestone or a very hard or a granite or otherwise. That's where you have that, that swing move that you have to know your business and what you're able to use and guide the client the right way.
Yeah, wow. Agnes, Joe showed when he was showing those last bathrooms, he showed a marble wall treatment where it was up to the wainscot and it was fluted. Is that a process that's exclusive to you guys at ABC? I don't know that I've really ever seen that before.
No, unfortunately, it's not a process that's exclusive to ABC. However, most of these type of finishes are done overseas in Italy. Yeah, I would say that they're mostly done at our factories overseas.
And is that type of fabrication, that fluting, is that better or worse for particular types of stone? Does it weaken the stone at all? Are there things like stones veining? Could it crack or something? Or
no, for a wall application, absolutely not. It's perfectly fine.
Okay, interesting. Okay, Joe, another question for you about the space. So the space was leased. We have a question. Do you know what the monthly rent is?
I do. I do, but it's confidential.
Yeah.
Suffice to say, it's a lot more than what I pay.
Yeah, I bet. All right. So I think, if anybody else has any other questions and wants to send them in, I think I got them all. So many great ones. Joe or John or Agnes, any other like good takeaways from those projects that we should know about?
I think everybody that's in the industry that we're in, and anybody that watched what Joe has done with this particular brownstone, this particular house, you have to take everything that you're doing, and the great thing is the spa, because when Agnes truly was the one that found the material, but a lot of other people that I've worked with, a lot of other architects and designers might have taken that stone and just put it up in slab against the wall, per se, where you see the water area. But the lyric design that Joe used, quite extensively there, was to now take the stone. This is what we have to look at from that architectural design base, is you come to us and you could see a full slab, but then the creativity of someone like Joe was to take it and let's change the format of what the slab is. Let's keep the color and keep everything, but why have just a slab with one running vein going into another running vein? Let's cut this up in stacked material so we see this dancing that happens on stone. So what he did was he just took these ordinary slabs with the process of his genius, per se, and changed them around. Exactly. So you see on the floor, there's a full slab where the person's swimming to the right, to the left of what we're looking at. But then the walls were taking with the same slabs, took them apart, recut everything, and then basically dry laid and then installed. That's the key of taking your time with him as who he is, with the clients, to give them this type of an effect that is just not, well, I saw slabs and I really like the way they look. Let's think outside the box what could happen with something of this. And I think that particular room is such creativity by Joe. It's just incredible on the way that design came out, using just a simple gray black granite with a white vein in it.
Yeah, I do really agree with you on that. Like it does get so unique and so special. John, one more question for you. I mean, talk to us a little bit about like the training that these stone cutters have to go through in order to be able to do something like that. Like it must be, you guys must work with some pretty specialized people over there at ABC.
Well, I've got to compliment most of the fabricators in the tri-state area. These people are very well equipped. Joe didn't have to go to anyone special. He knows these fabricators that he worked with. He gave them an idea of the process on how he had to do it. Joe simplified it by giving them on details and giving them a virtual look at what he wanted to do. But getting back to what you had mentioned about the fluting, Melissa, is that I'll give you a good example. If anybody wants to go online and look at the Brooklyn One hotel. Now that material was supposed to be material all from Italy. It was supposed to be Cipollino and other materials. What had happened was, because of the immense amount of stone that had been used in the 90 rooms or so, the Cipollino became very expensive. It was almost $40 a square foot just in 3/4 material. So what we did, we found a dead lookalike in Vermont, and it was called Olympic. It's an Olympic mountain white striato. It means it's got just straight lines going through it. And they took that, and the people in Vermont did a wonderful job by doing all the fluting, right? So the fluting process is 2 plants. There's one in Vermont and the other one is in Italy. So when there's a design concept by an architect like Joe and say, well, listen, I want to create this wall, but I want to give it some feeling, some life. And I want to do a fluting, right? I want to do something concave or even convex. This, we do a prototype constantly. You remember that about ABC. Nothing is left to chance. So we send Joe a prototype, the stone was done, and let's say a 12 by 24 sample that was sent to us to give to the architect or designer. Once that is then signed off, then we continue the job. So everything we do is very, very precise. We try not to take any chances with anything because the machinery in Europe is really second to none. And I mean Germany and Italy and Brazil, they do, and Portugal, wonderful, wonderful jobs there with any kind of the detail that you need. But we are capable of getting anything back to our client within a week. You know, DHL, have the piece done, all the work goes on Agnes's shoulders. She's the one that's responsible for everything. She does a great job. And that's how we try to align ourselves with all of these beautiful finishes of material.
Amazing. Well, I found this to be so, so informative, and I really, really loved that project, Joe. I mean, it's so incredible, and what you've created, you know, and just walking us through your process, I think is so informative. And hopefully we can all be better designers and architects for having been here today. So I think that's all the questions, and we have this recorded, so you can always view it later or send it to a friend or colleague. And thank you, Joe, John, and Agnes for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe and Melissa.